Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk on creating a safe space for clients of yours that may be gay, lesbian, bi, trans, queer, etc. We're going to kind of talk about what all of those words mean today, how we can create a safe space. This is my dog Bean. I guess she decided she's not going to be involved in this. She might jump back up, but a little bit of introduction for myself. My name is Valerie Ross. I am a certified professional dog trainer. I'm owner of Sits and Wiggles Pet Care and Training. Our pet care side did take a little bit of a hit from COVID, unfortunately. I was born a woman. I identify as a woman, so that's cisgender. I use she, her pronouns. I am in a lesbian marriage, and I identify as queer. My wife identifies as lesbian. I am mom to two rescue pit bulls, Phoenix and Bean. They inspired my next talk that I'll be doing in a couple weeks for this conference. And then we have a variety of reptiles up there as well. That's my wife's specialty, is rescuing reptiles. My goal today is to help allies create a safe space for their clients that could be queer, so that you aren't doing anything offensive. You're really driving home that you are an ally, and doing things such as that. I'm not going to focus on anything marketing, trying to kind of utilize or anything kind of market and, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of suck in the LGBT community, but just do some small things that can show that you are inclusive and respectful of the community. I'm sharing information with you today about the LGBT community as it stands here in the United States. There could, of course, be some differences in terminology, language, and appropriateness for your specific country. So I'm going to recommend that don't go with just what I say, but reach out to the LGBT or support organizations in your country to make sure that you're really doing things the way that works best for your area. Again, this is United States based, so this is what we're going to be talking about. I think I've done my homework. I've been a member of the community for quite some time, but also just made sure to deeply research every aspect, because everybody has different perspectives and experiences as a queer person. So don't mean to speak for them in any way, shape, or form. This is hopefully the best that I can do. We can ask questions, and hopefully there are folks who identify differently than me that will be able to answer any questions that you may have that's not appropriate for me to ask. Okay, so have my notes here off to the side just so we make sure we can cover everything. And what I'm going to do is give you kind of a lot of overview for this, and then I will post in the event some links to some really helpful information, my notes, things of that after we get done here with our talk. I'm going to wrap up at the end and ask for any questions. Then you're welcome to kind of stop me in the comments. I'll try and pay attention and get those answered as well, but also try and stay on track so that we can get through this in our hour and not roll over into the next talk. All right, so when we're talking about the LGBTQIA community, it's really kind of broken down into two communities that come together as one, or two kind of variances, two kind of groupings that can be intertwined and intersect or potentially could not. One is sexuality. Sexuality really is who the person is attracted to sexually and or romantically. And of course, those could be two very different things. The other area is gender identity, and this is getting a lot of attention right now, especially with recent legislation in the past few years here in the United States about bathroom bills and military stuff. So this has been a very sensitive and hot topic within our community about gender identity. What gender identity is the internal perception a person has of one's gender and how they label themselves. They may align, such as myself, with the sex that they were assigned at birth, or they may not. And it may or may not align with what all of us understand to be our gender identity in our communities. Here in the United States, men are to be men and you do masculine things, and women are to be women and you do, feminine things and you dress in a feminine way. The fact of the matter is that is not accurate for the vast majority of people. It's all internalized, and we have to kind of determine who we are on our own. As I said, I was born female or assigned female at birth. I am biologically female, and I identify as female. I, however, am not into a bunch of super feminine things. I'm not into cooking and cleaning and having children or things of that nature, but I'm also not necessarily super into masculine things like hunting and carpentry and things of that nature. Whenever I dress, I do a lot of t-shirts and hoodies and jeans and tennis shoes, but I do really like to dress up when going out and put on makeup and things of that nature. So, it's everybody has to be different, and our biggest goal here is to be respectful of that. So we're going to go through some basic terminology. We've defined sexuality and gender, so those bigger kind of heading topics, and we're going to kind of work through what does all of those letters in that alphabet soup stand for, so you're aware of that and aware of current language here in the United States. And then we'll work through some things that you can do to just small things you can do to show it is a safe space for those who may be LGBT in your area. So we're just going to kind of go through that alphabet soup and start to finish. I have a few extra terms that are not necessarily involved in that we're going to also go over. So this is a little bit boring for you, potentially hearing me read definitions, but we'll try and make this part as quick and painless as possible, and then move into things an ally should be and things that you can do within your business. Place of work. So the L in LGBT stands for lesbian. It refers to folks who identify as women who are sexually and or emotionally romantically attracted to other folks who identify as women. Gay, G, is for people who identify as men who are emotionally, romantically, and sexually attracted to other folks who identify as men. Bisexual is someone who is sexually or emotionally attracted to more than one gender. There has been in recent time some concern about bi only including those who are kind of on the binary, who were born men and identify as men, or who were born women and identify as women, and therefore kind of excludes our trans and non-binary community. There has been kind of a reclaiming in recent years of it is more than one gender, redefining of it. So that is a term out there that can cause a little bit of conflict depending on who you're talking to. Be conscientious of that. Ask questions. That's okay as long as it's coming from a place of love and wanting to understand that particular person a little bit more. The T stands for transgender. As I said, this is kind of our area of our community that really has suffered a lot lately. So it's a sensitive topic. I am not trans, so I don't feel comfortable diving into all of that. It's not my place to speak on their experience, but we're going to define it, give you some other words that kind of fall under that trans category, and definitions for that, and we can move on. And like I said, I'm sure there are folks out there willing to answer your more intimate questions on that than I am able to. So this term really describes anyone whose gender or identity expression does not conform to what is expected based on the sex they were assigned at birth. So this could be someone who does want to fully medically transition from male to female or female to male. This could be someone who identifies just as a trans person but doesn't necessarily want to go through the treatment and the medical transition as well. This could also be someone who considers themselves non-binary. They do not fit into the category of male or female, man or woman, and so they may use pronouns such as they, them, so that they kind of have a fuller feeling of who they are. They're not really either. They are something. They feel differently about who they are and that they don't fit into those categories. Most folks that identify as male or man use he, him, his pronouns. Most folks that identify as female or woman use she, her pronouns. And sometimes they kind of float between them as well. These are normally people who consider themselves gender fluid, where they don't want a static gender identity, or they don't feel like they have a static gender identity. Those are a couple of the terms that fall under that transgender category. The third one is gender nonconforming. This is someone maybe a little bit more like my wife. She agreed to let me talk about her for a moment. She was assigned female at birth. She identifies as female. She uses she, her, hers pronouns. But she is very masculine. She likes wearing men's clothes, men's shoes. She does a lot of kind of masculine activities. She loves carpentry. She does kind of the man chores around here at our home, or what would stereotypically be considered man chores here at home, like mowing the lawn and fixing the leaky sink and all of those kinds of things. But she's also our main cook and our main grocery shopper. So thank goodness for her, I don't have to go out in COVID and deal with that. So it's people who don't necessarily they don't feel as if they are trans or non-binary or any of those other things, but they don't fit into the normal stereotypical idea of what a man or a woman would be. So you do have that. Moving on, we have the Q, and that is really encompassing two different words, both queer and questioning. Questioning is a term that refers to someone who is not sure how they identify, whether regarding their sexual orientation or their gender identity. They know they don't necessarily fit into the cisgender straight categories, but they aren't really sure how they identify. So that is one option that you may have out there. The next word is queer. You've heard me say this a couple of times, that I identify as queer. It is definitely one of those words that as a straight cisgendered person you're probably not going to get away with using, but us in the community can as self-identifiers, unless that person tells you it's okay to use that term when you're referring to them. Queer is often used as an umbrella term referring to anyone who is not straight or cisgendered. So that's why I use that term. None of the other terms really seem to fit me as well as that one does. I have had romantic relationships with a variety of different types of wonderful people in my life, and that just seems to be what fits me best. So that is the term that I use. And like I said, don't call me queer if you're being mean to me, but that is how I identify. So we want to stay away from that term if we are straight and cisgender, and talking about the community. All right, so the I usually refers to intersex, and I'm going to read the definition because I want to make sure I get this really correct. I want to be very sensitive. This term refers to people who naturally have biological traits which do not match what is typically identified as male or female. There are many different intersex variations, and some intersex folks have XXY chromosomes. Some have ambiguous genitalia, or internal sex organs. Some intersex people have internal sex organs or hormones that are released once they hit puberty, and it doesn't necessarily match what their exterior genitalia shows. It's a naturally occurring variation in humans. We have seen it in other species as well, but it's something that just happens. It's not pathological in any way. Being intersexed does not necessarily tie to a person's sexual orientation or their gender identity, but it could. It depends on that individual. We're kind of getting a theme here, right? Respect the individual. All right. And so the A actually has 3 words it stands for: asexual, aromantic, and ally. We'll start with ally first. So ally is someone who identifies as cisgender and straight, and they believe, but these people believe in social and legal equity for LGBTQ plus people. So hopefully that is anyone here who does not identify as gay or does not identify as gay or some other of these letters here that that we've talked about. Asexual and aromantic are very similar. So, but these are folks who, it's an umbrella term kind of used for folks who do not experience experience a very low level of sexual desire or romantic connection to people. Other folks. So someone who is aromantic may feel a lot of sexual attraction to people, but they don't have that need for commitment and romance. They don't need that in their lives. Aromantic folks don't really care for having a lot of sex. They're not really sex driven, don't have high libidos, but they want that romance. They want the cuddling and the flowers and all of that fun kind of stuff that we do to show each other that we love each other in a romantic way. So those could be folks that you deal with as well. A couple of additional terms that we have kind of talked about was non-binary, genderqueer, agender, bigender. Many societies recognize more than one gender. Some, like here in the United States, the majority does not, or at least they claim they don't, and try and legislate against us. So you may hear non-binary often as well. Like I said, folks who identify as non-binary tend to use they, them pronouns. Yes, it is still grammatically correct here in the United States. I do believe several languages do have kind of a third gender word that they may utilize. Again, check in your country. We have been talking a little bit about cisgender, and I don't think I have clearly defined that. I talked about myself as being cisgender. Cisgender is denoting or relating to a person whose sense of identity and gender does correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth. So this is the vast majority of folks that you are probably dealing with in your business, in your training business, but you still want to be really sensitive to that. You can't tell for everybody, and you definitely don't want to assume and make assumptions around folks' gender identity. Alrighty. We're going to start talking about creating a safe space, why we want to create a safe space, and who we are as allies. Want to make sure I'm not running over. Oh, we got plenty of time yet. So recent years, we have been seeing more and more organizations strive to make a culture on their campuses or in their workplaces to be more aware and accepting of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals. And that is super awesome. We love it. So we're going to talk about how, why, etc. For the remainder of this talk. So the reason why we really want to create a safe space is to help reduce the abuse of LGBTQIA folks, reduce bullying, reduce assaults, reduce homelessness, reduce suicide, and reduce harmful legislation. Like I said, especially here in the United States, the last 4 years we have had some pretty harmful legislation proposed and or passed that does terrible things to the LGBT community. Also, by creating safe spaces, we're hopefully able to help improve the mental health of those who identify as LGBTQIA. We are increasing our diversity, increasing our inclusion, and increasing love, acceptance, and respect. And I think that one really hits home to the force-free positive reinforcement training community. So that's what we try and preach regarding our dogs. And so we're just trying to do that for everybody, their guardians, and just folks in your community, your friends and family as well. An ally really strives to be a friend, a listener, tries to be open-minded. You're welcome to have your own opinions, of course, but be willing to talk about those opinions. Recognize your personal boundaries and the boundaries of others. Join in a common purpose with helping increase respect for the LGBT community. An ally does need to believe that all persons, regardless of sex, race, gender, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression should be treated with dignity and respect. Checking my notes, that's why I'm looking off to the side, you guys. And recognize when to refer maybe an individual to additional or other resources. Maybe you just can't meet all of their needs, and that's totally fine. Send them off to somewhere else. I personally do virtual sessions, so I can do those sessions all over the world. I know timing seems to be a bit of an issue, especially with time change, but I am here if needed as well. Oh, yes, this is why I keep notes. I lose track. Confront your own prejudice. Even myself, because I am white, because I am cisgender, because I am often straight passing, I've recognized in myself even some prejudice I have. So I continually work on myself so I can be a better ally to folks who don't have the exact same identity as myself. Just because you identify as LGBTQI or A doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't be an ally to other folks in the community. Gotta work on ourselves, right? Recognize your mistakes, but don't use them for an action, okay? Engage in the process of developing a culture free of homophobia, transphobia, and heterosexism. So heterosexism is only straight cisgendered people should be able to have loving relationships, have protections over housing, schooling, and all of those kinds of things as well. Be responsible for empowering the LGBT community and their role in the larger community as a whole, not just within the LGBT community. Recognize legal powers and privileges that cisgender straight people have, which LGBTQIA people do not have. And especially if those LGBTQIA people also are Black, Indigenous, or people of color, things are exceptionally more difficult whenever we have that intersectionality as well. So be very conscientious of that. And an ally also commits themselves to personal growth in spite of discomfort it may sometimes cause. Finally, know that you have no right to know their sexuality or gender identity. They may not want to share that with you, or at least not early on. And as they feel they can trust you, then they may start to share their story with you, but it is their story to share and only their story to share. Not all of us are super out and proud, or we are, this is a little more me, a little more conscientious when we've met a person and we kind of don't have any references or referrals to them to know that they are an ally and kind of in our corner, and it is a safe space for them. For example, I am very lucky. I live in a pretty liberal and progressive city here in Cleveland, Ohio, here in the United States. Ohio is not nearly as progressive as maybe New York or California is. But the vast majority of my clients I feel very comfortable being myself around, but I do have clients that I pay attention to never speaking about who I am or how I identify or my wife because it isn't safe. And like I said, especially in the last 4 years, it has been a difficult time here in the United States if you do identify as anything other than straight and cisgendered. So we tend to be very cautious about who we let in our homes, who we want to work with. So that is why we're going to start talking about ways to put some ideas into practice to create your business as a safe space. I do know in several other countries there is a lot of difficulties legislation-wise and safety-wise for LGBTQIA folks, and oftentimes those who are allies also are putting themselves at risk. So one thing that we always say is safety first. So don't put your life on the line. We want you to be safe, but do what you can and still be safe. So that is why we're going to start digging into this next section and how it is that you really can, there's some practices that you can put into place in your business that will help create that safe space. Usually my dog just wants to sit right behind me. She's just walking all around. Okay. So first thing, and this is kind of more of a private thing, you're not going to put this out anywhere, is recognize that everybody is unique in their self-identities. No two people are the same. Our perspectives and our experiences are all very different and very changing. My experience as a queer woman has been mostly positive and easy. I was not rejected by my family. I haven't really had much harassment. I have had some, but not a ton. And then there's folks like my wife who has had a very difficult time. She was rejected by her family. She has been harassed for being in women's restrooms, again, because she is gender nonconforming. So it's not always easy, and there are different traumas that can be around being LGBTQI or A. Thankfully, here in the United States, it does seem as younger folks are coming out and parents are a little bit younger, a lot more acceptance and love and building up of the LGBT community, which is really great. But just recognize that still isn't the case for everybody, especially some of the older millennials, Gen X, and older. Sometimes we had a little bit of a rough time. So recognize that and recognize what that can do for their commitment to training, their ability to get through everything, or any kind of mental health issues that they may be struggling with. Next thing you can do is work to end gender-based assumptions regarding toys, activities, attire. Use gender-neutral language when you don't know a person's pronouns. So gender-neutral language is they, them. And when talking about gender-based assumptions and such things as toys and activities is if you think that person is, they have children and that child, you assume that child is a girl, she doesn't necessarily need to have pink and Barbie dolls and all of those kinds of things. And boys do not need to wear blue and have Tonka trucks. Growing up, I definitely did not fit that. I remember particularly, and this was a little bit of a thing at home, I won some sort of fundraising campaign at my school, and I chose a race car set instead of Barbies. So that was a little bit of a conversation, both at the school and that. But here's the thing, it's fine. Like, why does that even matter? Except that we have these preconceived notions of what gender, what is correct. And the fact of the matter is there's nothing correct. We're just humans trying to stumble through this life, right? All right. So don't just assume that they want pink or blue. If you sell products at your training center, have something more than just pink or blue. Or don't bulk whenever, somebody who does appear to be a woman decides to buy blue, for example. Or my favorite color, honestly, is black. I wear a lot of black. So don't judge, don't assume, don't try and steer them towards anything that is gender specified. Actually have a bunch of different stuff available. Okay. Beauty of dog stuff, you got everything. You do have those pink daisies collars, and you do have like green camo. So, and those two couldn't be more genderized if you wanted them to be, right? Okay. If you do have a training center, ensure that your clients have access to bathroom facilities aligned with their gender, or make them unisex bathrooms. Our training facility, we just had 2 bathrooms, so they were just unisex bathrooms. Just go to the bathroom and don't make it a thing. We just labeled it bathroom, and that was the end of that. If you do have multiple bathrooms, don't label one man, one woman. Don't kind of enforce that. There isn't a need. It's just a bathroom. And the fact of the matter is if like you have a bathroom with multiple stalls, it's just nothing's going to happen as much as the conservatives may want you to believe that. Use gender neutral or self-identified pronouns when speaking to your clients. So it's totally acceptable to put in your registration form a field for pronouns. It's not preferred pronouns, it is pronouns, right? Preferred indicates that there's a choice in the matter, and typically there's not. Or the choice is not being mentally healthy and happy, or being mentally healthy and happy, and that's what we want, right? Self-identify in your email signatures, in your bio, on your website with your pronouns. So my email has Valerie Ross, CBDT, owner of Sits and Wiggles, she, her, in my email. My bio also has Valerie Ross, CBDT, parentheses, she, her, and so does my wife on her bio as well. My assistant is a straight cisgendered woman. She has her pronouns in her, actually both of my assistants, both my administrative assistant and my assistant trainer, and they both have their pronouns in there. It's totally acceptable. It's actually super cool. So do that. That's going to be a big one for you. And then also whenever you are in your appointments or you're in your classes, listen to how couples refer to each other and use the same language. Not all couples call each other boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, partner, husband, wife, etc. My wife and I, whenever we started dating and we went into that kind of girlfriend phrase, we did call each other girlfriends. That's what we wanted to do. When we got engaged, we were fiancés. And now that we're married, we are wives to each other. It's what we wanted to do. Many of our friends have chosen not to do that. They use different terms. Utilize those terms. Then also, whenever you're calling, I kind of slip into this sometimes myself, is talking about the dog's guardians as mom and dad to the dog. But so pay attention to that and make sure that you're using terms that they use. Maybe they don't refer to themselves as mom and dad. Maybe they have other terms that they use. And that's fine, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. I try to pay attention, make sure that we're referring to everybody as who they identify as. That's the biggest piece of respect. In your social media, lift up stories of LGBTQIA clients if they give you permission. I try and take photos of all of my dogs and clients to put out on social media, and I always make sure that it's okay to do that, and then I lift up those stories of things that we've done that's really awesome. I make sure if I am identifying any couples that are LGBT that want to be properly, how they want to be identified in those stories. So we talk about Ruby's two dads, and that's totally fine if they're okay with it. So you're totally welcome to do that, and that's a great option for you. Celebrate Pride Month. Pride Month is in June. In June, several years, about 50-ish years ago, was the first Pride. It was a riot at the Stonewall Inn due to police brutality against the LGBT community. We have taken that riot and turned it into a celebration and also a protest. Celebrate how far we have come and protest how much more we still need to do. You're welcome to join in on that celebration. There are other holidays, days of remembrance that you are welcome to also post about if you would like. And some different cities and different countries around the world, their Pride Month might be in different times other than June. So pay attention to that and do it within where you live and help them out that way. Build partnerships with other local organizations. Definitely starting to get tired. Local organizations that support the LGBTQIA community. Most cities have an LGBT center of some kind. Many schools have gay-straight alliances. There's a bunch of different things. Here in Cleveland, we have the LGBT Center. We have B. Riley Sober House, which is a home and facility for those struggling with substance abuse. And a few other organizations, those are two big ones here. One of them is called Stonewall Recreational Sports. We have North Coast Softball. And so we also organize and help support them by providing pet CPR and first aid classes, dog bite prevention classes, and even sponsorships recently, before COVID hit, so 2019, we even had a booth at our local Pride event, so that we were there. And then you can make a statement on your website or social media, such as, at XYZ Dog Training, we believe in a diverse world. We are stronger when we are inclusive, and our doors are open to all. So in that statement, you're not necessarily, making this big proclamation, especially if you live in an area where that might really be detrimental to the success of your business. But it should be open enough for those who do identify as LGBT to know that you are a safe space. So those are some things that you can do. Like I said, I'm going to throw up my notes into this event, so you have those to download. Check out local organizations in your area, particularly if you do live in other countries, to make sure that you're aligning with what is the accepted practices in your country. like I said, they could be different. We're just focusing here in the United States, since that's where I live and that's what I can talk about. And does anybody have any questions? I don't see any questions coming up in the comments. Yeah, let's see. Just go to the bathroom. Exactly. Just go to the bathroom and don't make it a thing. Like, really? Is that one of the most private things ever? So, just, why is it a thing? I don't know. Great. All right. Well, I don't see any questions. If anybody wants to post anything, I really appreciate everybody who has stopped by to listen. I hope I've done all of the LGBT community well. And I'm here if you do have any questions. You can throw them up after the fact. I'll come back and check, or shoot me an email in my business email, info@sits, the letter N as in Nancy, Wiggles, CLE.com, and I'll put that in my information as well. If you have any questions, or you're like, hey, I've been doing this thing, is this okay? I'm glad to answer questions like that for you. Alrighty. I don't see any questions popping up. Oh, wait. So Sarah, I have not done a class specifically only for LGBT folks. I've always left it open. So I can't speak to that. Depending on where you're at, you may have trouble getting it full. And so that's why I just never did. Cleveland is kind of a smaller city, so I've always just left it open to everybody, while also doing what I can, leading that class to be inclusive, making sure I'm using pronouns, making the correct pronouns for that person, make sure I'm using the correct labels for that person if I am speaking to them over the microphone. So you're just going to want to kind of do that. Make sure that in your marketing, and when you're speaking about this, if you don't identify as LGBTQIA, that you're being super respectful and doing it from a place of love. That is the biggest thing, I think, that kind of helps the community forgive. Is like, okay, it truly is from a place of love. Yes, they've slipped up, but they're coming from a place of love and they're willing to learn and move forward with that. So I'd be happy to talk to more about that, Sarah, and help you through with that. And so just shoot me a PM or something and we can talk. All right, guys, I really appreciate your time. Some places and events. Oh, got it. Great. Yeah, let's talk about that, Sarah. I think that's a great and wonderful idea. Maybe reaching out to your city's LGBT center would be a great way to help with that. Us queer folks, we love our pets, so that is a definite thing. And as far as my clientele, that makes up, the community makes up a pretty big chunk of my clientele. Because I am a member of the community. Yeah, Trisha, I'll get up all of my information. So I've had folks, Sarah, drive in even from well over an hour away specifically to work with me, because I do identify and I do have that out kind of there for everybody. I have folks contacting me specifically because friends within the LGBT community have told them I'm a dog trainer and that I'm a safe person. So those are some ways that you can help fill that class. So, all right, guys, I'm going to let you go. I've been yammering at you now for almost 45 minutes about this topic. Like I said, have questions, let me know. I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to go. Have a great one, and I'll see you around the conference. Thank you, everybody.